Hello everyone, so we're going to continue with the 12.1 notes. This is all about imperialism. So yesterday we discussed the reasons why the European nations would imperialize countries. Today we're going to discuss how they're going to rule other countries and lands. So the different forms of imperialization are protectorates, direct rule, and indirect rule. The first one we're going to discuss is a protectorate. So within the word protectorate is the word protect. So these people are providing protection for the country or the land that they have imperialized. So the country that's being imperialized is depending upon the country who has taken over to provide them with protection and security so that their country is not attacked by another country. The two major types of rule that were used during this period of time were indirect rule and direct rule. We're going to start with indirect rule. So indirect rule is when the locals, the people who have lived there for a long period of time, are allowed to continue to hold their positions of power and lead their people. So this happens in India and some of the other countries. So even though they're imperialized by some of the European countries, um, their local leaders who have lived there for a long period of time and get to keep their leadership roles and keep some of their customs and their traditions that they're used to. Direct rule is the other one that's very popular at this period of time. And direct rule is when the countries, the European countries, put their people in charge. So you can see in this little political cartoon, we have somebody from one of the European countries literally like sitting on top of the people within their imperialized country. So this is showing that they're directly ruling. They're the ones that are in charge all the time. They have people in the imperialized country, the countries that they've taken over, and they're the ones that are ruling and telling people what to do and how to do it. So now that we've talked about the different types of rule, which are the protectorate, which the protectorate provides protection, direct rule, which means that the imperialized country has leaders from European countries in them. So Great Britain or France or whatever European country would have leaders in those new countries. An indirect rule, which means that the original countries get to keep their leadership there. Now we're going to talk about specific countries and why they were imperialized and who imperialized them. So we're going to start with Great Britain imperializing India and Singapore. So they imperialized India because they wanted access to China. So India is going to be right near China. It's going to have access to those resources. On day one, we talked about one of the motivations. Those natural resources are going to be a motivator for imperializing. Some of the resources in India are coffee, tea, rubber, cotton. So that's a huge motivator, and opiums as well. So Great Britain's going to set up some posts throughout India, one particularly in Bombay, and they're going to try to create a line of trade to China. They're also going to push English as the dominant spoken language in India at this point in time. So now we're going to talk about Vietnam. So the French are going to imperialize Vietnam. They're going to use direct rule. So they're going to replace the Vietnam's government with the French leaders. So the Vietnam leaders will have very little power at this time, if any. One of the major motivators for the French to imperialize Vietnam is trade with China. and another is to have missionaries within Vietnam. So they wanted to spread Christianity. As we spoke about before in many of our units, um, the church as a whole was very popular, not just the Catholic Church, but the other branches as well. So they wanted to spread the word of God. And at this time, uh, the Catholic Church was able to um, push into Vietnam and spread their word of God. And currently, they still have a lot of Catholic Catholic churches in Vietnam. However, there are more traditional um, religions than Catholic churches in Vietnam currently. Next, we're going to talk about the Philippines. So the Philippines are going to be imperialized by the United States. So the United States are going to gain the Philippines during the Spanish-American War. The United States are going to be a little bit divided about their feelings about imperialism because of their history with Great Britain. There are some pros and cons for them, but they do imperialize the Philippines. So this gives them more access to China. Again, that motivation for raw material and trade and the economic growth. So the last three countries that we've talked about, everybody wants access to China and to grow their market. Another thing here for the United States imperializing the Philippines is to civilize their inhabitants. So this goes back to thinking that they're the superior race and that they are doing good for the people who live there. So this is the activity that you're going to be doing today in class. You're going to be filling out a chart. You'll see this in Canvas. This is going to be using your online textbook. You'll be looking for lots of the negative effects of imperialism. Then you're also going to be looking for some of the benefits. There are fewer benefits, but there are some. So specifically, there's one in Southeast Asia that you want to be looking for. But that's what you're going to be doing. And then we'll talk about what we do next in class.